I mean, if I'm a Tennessee fan, I'm trying to get in on the secondary market. Good luck in that one. This is what they've been waiting for. So, yeah, I do think the crowd's going to be cooking. I agree with Lance. We looked at the numbers the other day. By the way, let me go back to that number I gave you, because I gave you scoring average, points per game for Tennessee versus what they do on the road. When you look at it home versus road, there was a 20-point gap 2 years ago. 20 points.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a massive gap on what you do at home versus what you do on the road. I got to see Tennessee. They're not going to score these kind of points all year long because the competition is going to increase. I got to see them do it on the road before I 100% believe this offense is as good as everybody says it is.
Speaking of that, Dave Shamati gives me this.
Who's Dave Shamati?
It's a friend of mine who does a lot of stats for the SEC stuff, trying to make it into the business. He feeds me this. Josh Heupel on the road. I just wanted to give him credit.
Dave. Dave Shamati.
Dave, I can go give his byline. Guess he sees something. He does something out there.
Okay, that cleared it up.
I don't want to look it up. I mean, Dave Shamati, just trust me. Dave Shamati.
All right, I'll trust you, Jim.
You don't know the name.
All right.
5-7 on the road in the SEC is Josh Heupel. 4 of those wins against Vandy and Kentucky. So Josh hasn't really killed it on the road.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. In the conference. That is absolutely what I'm saying. And Dave perhaps said it better than me. But I just got to see this game travel, Lance. It has not done it historically. This offense has been really, really good at Neyland, but hasn't been as good traveling in the SEC. And that's true of all offenses. I get it, but that offense especially.
When Heupel has an elite quarterback, which I think we all agree he does, or at least the look of an elite quarterback that will develop into one, he is one of the top 3 to 5 play callers in all of college football. His offenses just click.
I don't disagree.
And there is such a good fluidity to those offenses. And now that you've got multiple guys on the edge that can create plays, but now you've got Dylan Sampson in that backfield who leads the FBS with 9 touchdowns rushing right now. Tennessee is going to be a difficult out just based on if the defense isn't as good on the back end as we think it is. They're still going to be able to score with anybody in college football.
National championship good, in fact. Rockstar, if you can give me cut number 4, Josh Heupel this week talking about just having to go to the next level. I mean, you can be good, and they were really good a couple of years ago in 2022. But you got to go to the next level. Heupel, a chance to prove that this week on the road in Norman.
I've said it, I think maybe training camp, this team was really good just in how consistent they were through spring ball in training camp. They've been that way during the course of the season. As a player, man, you better enjoy the win Saturday night and enjoy it on Sunday too. But Monday's, getting back to reality and understanding how you got to grow and understanding the you're only as good as your next one as a competitor, and this group's been really mature that way, and certainly the opponent that we have this week will capture everybody's attention.
I'll say this about him. If this is this big emotional game, this blood feud that everybody has played up that it is, you can't tell it by watching that guy.
He's playing it just the way you're supposed to play it.
Absolutely. If anything, he's downplayed it rather than trying to feed that fire, at least to the media. Now, I don't know what he's doing behind closed doors to his team. That's a different story.
Yep.
We talked about that the other day. How much do they know? I mean, they're being asked about it, I'm sure, all week long.
Question on the fly. Could you fit more golf balls in Jay Leno's head or Josh Heupel's head?
Jay Leno by a sleeve, by 3. Dave Shamati, by the way, my friend from SEC Unfiltered. You can see SEC Unfiltered with Taylor Korn most recently.
Up to here at the Next Round. The easiest way to stay in the know with our antics and adventures is to follow the Next Round across all social media platforms at Next Round Live on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Whether it's Dunaway sleeping in the studio, Tim and Lunceford breaking down the latest movie release, or Game Day Chronicles, we are here to keep you updated on the latest sports news while, of course, having just a little bit of fun. Follow at Next Round Live across all platforms to join in. Happy football season. At the Next Round, we strive to make our loyal listeners feel like they're a part of the action all season long. My name is Emily Grace McWhorter, and I do that by bringing you along for any given Saturday in Auburn or Tuscaloosa. From pregame warm-ups, touchdowns that make you feel a part of the play, and everything in between, our goal is to make you feel like you're inside Bryant-Denny or Jordan Hare. Follow along on our social media at Next Round Live on Instagram, X, and Facebook. Also, check out thebarnauburn.com and covercrimson.com while you're at it. Here's to fall Saturdays.
Man, is it Monday already? Is it week 5 already? God, it flies by, and it is. All of those things. He's Tom Luginbill. I'm Jim Dunaway. This is Monday Morning Live. We'll talk Bama hosting Georgia. ESPN's already got a promo. ABC does. They've rolled a piano into the field, and they're playing soft, dramatic music, getting ready for a showdown in Tuscaloosa. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what everybody in every church in the state of Alabama was talking about on Sunday, and that's Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers. But first, Lugs, good morning to you. Let's start with my number one team in the country. They wear orange, just like the AP poll's number one team in the country, but it ain't Texas. I don't want to sound like this ain't Texas. Who is that girl? This ain't Texas. It's Tennessee. Tennessee's got the best team in the country, man.
Well, before I get to that, I got to know who this Dave Shimati guy is. I'm listening to the replay before we come on this morning. And you mentioned this Dave Shimati handing you stats here and there. The other guys are busting your chops. Come on, give me some background here.
He's a nice guy on social media who we've gone back and forth a couple of times. He throws me some good stats. He's with SEC Unfiltered. Nice. Now, where SEC Unfiltered is, I don't know. It could be in Charlotte. Could be like down the hall in a warehouse next to the SEC network when you're in there or something. I don't know. I just know he's a good guy. I think I wished him well when he was moving from Atlanta to wherever he was moving. Social media makes us all feel close, Lugs.
Absolutely. I love it. And listen, if he can give you a few choice nugs to add to your content, that never hurts.
Every week, man. Hurts. Every week. He contributes more to me and my knowledge of football than Brownie does. By the way, Brownie and Marcelo up at 8 o'clock coming up. So Tennessee, for me, the number one team in the country. If I had a vote, that's who I'd vote for right now.
Well, a couple of things. I don't even think you're out of your tree on that one. I mean, I think it is more than valid to look at them in that type of light because of where their strengths are, okay? Up front in the front seven, quarterback's capable of being a difference maker. They can flat run the football down your throat at will. And when you look at the stat sheet, and I'm not a huge stat guy, but when you look at the stat sheet, and James Pierce is like the 12th guy on the list when it comes to production, what does that tell you about guys like Keenan Peely and these other names that nobody's talking about? Like, we know a bunch of names on Georgia's front and names on Alabama's front. There's not a lot of household names, but they're all playing at a really, really high level. I think they're incredibly difficult to defend. I don't know if you took a look at the surroundings in that game, how many Tennessee fans were actually at the game? It looked like it was half and half.
Yeah, they got in, man. They got in that stadium.
Unbelievable. I came away from that game unbelievable. I wasn't surprised that Oklahoma struggled on offense. I think Oklahoma is a struggle on offense. They are continuing to figure out how they are going to get on track and toe the rope in the same direction. Struggling in the offensive line, obviously struggling at quarterback. 3 of 15 on third down, 36 rush attempts for 34 yards. There were no answers. And I said last week, I probably said it with you on the show, I said it multiple times, Tennessee wants to get in a track meet. So if that game turns into 14-3, 17-3, it was going to be over because Oklahoma's not capable of doing that. Now, it didn't turn into that because it didn't have to. And you have to credit Oklahoma's defense because I think Oklahoma is loaded on defense. That's not the team you'd want to play right now. If you're Auburn, they're going to be a bunch of grouchy Sooners coming into town. But Tennessee, for my money, they don't have a lot of flaws, man.
Yeah, and we were watching Nico Iamaleava. Give it a shot, Luke's.
Iamaleava.
We were watching Nico. Anyway, it wasn't a perfect night for him, but he made some throws, dude. Cool. That were just amazing. And
the deep post throw that he made off the RPO,
yes,
the token in the backfield, that was like a 25-yard rope.
Yeah,
it was really impressive.
If you put a gun on it, it was Shohei Ohtani fast, right? Just an unbelievable pitch. And for me, we were all watching him to see if he would melt under the juiced-up stadium that was Norman, and I don't think he did. So we got a theme on the show today, and it's going to be quarterback. So Nico checked his box. On the other sideline in that game for Oklahoma, Dylan Gabriel could have been back for the Sooners, and they said no thank you, and he goes to Oregon. Still looks pretty good. Then you go Jackson Arnold, and we get into the game, and it's been we said goodbye to Dylan Gabriel because of Jackson Arnold.
Absolutely.
And then in the game, true freshman Michael Hawkins comes in, and he goes his first 4 attempts, 3 3-and-outs, and a fourth and a punt, a normal punt.
Yeah.
So 4 of his first 4 drives result in nothing. But by the end of the contest, Herb Street on the broadcast is saying, that's your quarterback right there. That's your quarterback.
Well, I thought he showed tremendous poise and composure. You know, he comes into a situation, they're down, they're behind, they can't muster anything. And over the course of the game, he showed some efficiency. Athletically, he can move around and make some plays on the move. I thought in that moment, while he wasn't able to create a comeback type scenario and put him in position because that score was deceptive at the end of the game, how he handled himself is probably what led Herbie to make that statement, because that's a tough environment for a youngster to go in and just be able to make some routine plays. I thought, what did he finish, 11 of 18 or 11 of 17? I mean, they couldn't put points on the board, but I thought he played competitively and showed their coaching staff something.
Yep. All right, we'll get to the Auburn conversation that we're all having with our friends and everything after I tell you about our friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. They bring you everything college football on our platforms here. First, good morning to Dave, who's up with us early, first in the chat room. Scott, who's watching us in Columbia, South Carolina this morning. Good morning to you, Scott. He gives us a Roll Tide from up there. Austin's good morning and Roll Tide. Bama, anytime you get Bama off a bye week, man, they're up early, ready to go. Default name says it's Georgia Hate Week with a saluting emoji. Good little rivalry game coming up this weekend. Craig talking about they can't protect the quarterback. I think it's Oklahoma he's talking about here. They have a struggle protecting the quarterback.
Yeah.
So that's going to make, and again, that's part of our theme, that's going to make it tough on any quarterback, right? And Oklahoma does have some offensive line issues, and Tennessee exposed that.
Yeah, they do. Yes, and they also they're not playing with their full deck at wide receiver. They don't have their best players on the field right now. So you have that. It's a combination of inexperience at quarterback, inexperience finding the right spots in the offensive line. They don't have a go-to feature back right now and can't establish anything on the ground. So what happens is Tennessee just lines up, pins their ears back, and says, we don't have to defend run, so we're just going to come after you, and completely dismantled Oklahoma up front.
Yeah, fun atmosphere. Welcome to the league, Oklahoma. Texas gets going with Mississippi State this week. More on Texas and Arch in a little bit. MyBookie.ag, MyBookie.ag, promo code next round. Squeeze those 2 words together, next round, make them 1, and you get double your bonus right there when you use that promo code. Whatever you say, you put in 100, you get 200, right? They throw an extra 100 in there for you, and that's how you get going. Play everything, whether it's the baseball playoffs coming up in a little over a week, or the NFL, which continues tonight, and, of course, college football and basketball all the time. Craig's back. He says it's UT. He says they struggle to protect the quarterback. Oklahoma did put some pressure on Nico a little bit. What do you think about the protection Tennessee offers as they get into deeper into SEC play?
Well, that's a defensive front that came into the game having posted 11 sacks and created 10 turnovers. So, listen, they deserve some credit for how they played and actually stopping that from becoming a track meet. So that defensive front's going to be amongst the best in the league. It was so much far superior to what Tennessee had played leading up into that game, because that's a fair question going into that game. Okay, Tennessee had not played anybody. And so now all of a sudden you make that jump to Oklahoma, you're going to have a couple of things that you're going to have to iron out. I thought they established themselves consistently enough. If you look at the number in the run game for Tennessee, it wasn't necessarily yards. They just kept digging away. It was 52 rush attempts on the day because they just kept hammering away at it. And I thought it was a pretty nice game plan.
Yeah. All right. So we move now to what went on in Auburn. It is Oklahoma, by the way, from that tough loss to Tennessee, coming to Jordan-Hare Stadium this week. Auburn will be 2-2 going into that game. We'll see if Jackson Arnold or Michael Hawkins is the starting quarterback for Oklahoma. Brent Venables saying after the game in the locker room, they'll evaluate the quarterbacks all week long. There's a good chance you see 2 quarterbacks down at Jordan-Hare Stadium this week. Speaking of 2 quarterbacks at Jordan-Hare Stadium this week, Gus Malzahn, not the coach there anymore. Brian Harsin not the coach there anymore. It is Hugh Freeze's team, and after year one, Hugh Freeze stuck with Peyton Thorne. He did not go get a quarterback in the portal. He talked about the price of quarterbacks in the portal, and they wanted to approach it just a little differently. Great recruiting class, great wide receivers come in. Peyton Thorne's my guy all year long. In the Cal game, a boatload of interceptions. I think it was 4 of them. And Peyton Thorne is out. Hank Brown is in against one of the worst defenses in college football in New Mexico, and Hank Brown looked great. Real quickly into the news conference after the New Mexico game. Oh, yeah, Hank's our starter next week. Hank Brown's the starter next week. Hank Brown starts his first SEC game and throws 3 interceptions in the first half. A couple of them just really bad, inexperienced reads. And at halftime, Hugh Freeze goes back to Peyton Thorne. Your thoughts first, not his postgame, just your thoughts on how he's handling the quarterbacks at Auburn. You've been a coach before. You played the position. Yeah. What the hell do you think's going on?
I don't think they can play. I think that's the problem. Is he can coach and he can coach and he can coach. I think they missed. And when they took Peyton Thorne out of Michigan State, because I had done a couple of Michigan State games with Peyton Thorne as the quarterback, and I thought he was a serviceable guy. There was no wow factor. There was nothing that said, "Whoa, this guy's going to be a potential difference maker." I didn't see any of that, and so I was a little surprised that they had gone after him. But he had played, so you put value in that. I believe that Hugh Freeze felt they were going to be so improved around the quarterback, particularly at wide receiver, and I think they are, that it would make the quarterback better, more comfortable, have more confidence, that he'd have some go-to playmakers. And what's happened is, they've gotten better there. And they were okay. They were playing fine. I mean, it was a close back-and-forth game with Arkansas. You're playing at home. But in that type of scenario, you just can't give the ball to the other team. And so I think what's happened is, yes, they've gotten better around him. But the fact remains, the guy pulling the trigger, either one of them right now is not good enough to consistently win you a football game if they can't consistently stop giving the ball to the other team.
They haven't played a ranked team, Auburn hasn't, but they have 8 interceptions in 4 games. They've got 14 turnovers in 4 games. They lead the SEC easily in both categories. Post-game now, Hugh Freeze talks about open receivers. I see open receivers on plays. And it is, when he's talking like that, it is the belief that he is throwing his players under the bus, end quote. It has been the talking point since the postgame, helped out by former quarterback at Ole Miss, Bo Wallace, from a decade ago, helped out by Ben Watson on the SEC network, who doubled down on the comments as well and echoed that. When you see a coach say that afterwards, now it's a long news conference. I think in the length of the news conference, there are other sound bites where he does. The coaches need to coach him better. He says all that, but in that one sound bite, it does appear he's throwing people under the bus, his players under the bus. Do you have thoughts on that in this era where we pay the players? Is it okay for a coach to say, "Well, we're missing open receivers"? I know they're open, but we're missing those. Is that okay, or is that crossing a line for you?
It didn't cross the line for me because he didn't directly point out one or the other. He just generically said, "We've got guys open. We're not hitting them. We got to stop throwing the ball to the other team." Listen, did he say anything that either of those 2 quarterbacks don't already know?
No.
I mean, we're not talking about something that he threw out a bunch of dirty laundry and blindsided these 2 players. These 2 players, they know they haven't played well. They know they've given the ball to the other team. I think a lot of frustration was boiling over in that press conference. I get it. You're right. These types of comments stand out. And the ones where he references coaching them better, having them better prepared, owning the situation, they get glossed over in that type of scenario. But I do think, and you asked something that's interesting, in this era of name, image, and likeness and pay to play and guys earning, I think you do have to take on some level of ownership in that as a player, when you're getting paid above and beyond what your scholarship is, and you're getting paid to produce and perform. Because if you don't have value and you're not generating value, why are you getting paid? And so for me, I was sensitive to those comments? Not overly, but I get where he's coming from. And if the players are sensitive to it, then they've got an even bigger problem than they already think they have, because then there's no awareness. But boy, did Bo Wallace just eviscerate Hugh Freeze. I mean, that was no holds barred. That was personal.
Yeah, it was personal. And I think you take a little bit of that, into the conversation. That was 10 years ago, if I'm right, on Bo's timeline, a decade ago at Ole Miss. And I believe this, and I want you to tell me if you think I'm stupid. When Auburn made the choice to go with Hugh Freeze, I think the people that made the choice for Auburn knew all of the backstory about Hugh Freeze. They knew what Bo Wallace was talking about. They knew the stuff that got him fired at Ole Miss. They knew everything about Hugh Freeze, and they still decided, I'm going to go with Hugh Freeze. So I don't think Bo Wallace saying what he said surprised any of the Yellowwood people or anybody else who made a decision at Auburn to go with Hugh Freeze. I don't think anybody's talking about anything this weekend about Hugh Freeze that they didn't already know in the search process. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement, because all of that stuff doesn't matter because he's won a lot of football games. I mean, let's really get down to what that's the bottom line here is everybody wanted Hugh Freeze at Auburn. Everybody knew his background. Everybody has known and been familiar with what led to his dismissal at Ole Miss. Anything Bo Wallace may have said, anything that anybody else wants to contribute, none of it matters. He's won a lot of football games. At the time, he's a guy who's beaten Nick Saban, right? Almost beat him last year, all right? Won at Liberty, had good quarterback play with Malik Willis, ironically a former Auburn player. And so it didn't matter. That was their guy because he had won. Well, now he's not winning. So all of that other stuff now comes right back out of the woodwork, and it's all anybody's focusing on. But you're right. Why are you knew it going in. This is the deal.
Yep. Tom Luginbill of ESPN. This is Monday Morning Live. Don't forget Brandon Marcello, Ryan Brown continues the conversation live at 8 o'clock Central Time this morning with the middle eight. In the chat room, we've got maybe our Chat of the Year comment after I tell you about our friends at Rhoback.com. It's our Rhoback.com Chat Comment of the Year contest. You can get great gear with Rhoback.com. Rhoback.com, promo code TNR20. 20% off right there at Rhoback.com. Timmons, using our fun on our mybookie.ag conversation all the time. We always tell you use promo code next round. You get double your deposit. That's the deal there. Timmons writes in, says, in Auburn this weekend with Oklahoma and Auburn, use code next round to get double your quarterbacks. You get it? Double your quarterbacks if you use promo code next round. Put that in the running for the comment of the year in the chat room there, because Oklahoma could play two quarterbacks. Auburn could play two quarterbacks. 2:30 this weekend on ABC. Michael says Auburn couldn't get Lane Kiffin. That's why they went with Hugh. I don't know. Did you think Lane was in on that job and they chose Hugh over Lane? That's the way I felt at the end.
That or Lane just used it as leverage to get more money from Ole Miss in a situation where right now, not saying traditionally, but right now, the Ole Miss job's a better job than Auburn is. Just like the Ole Miss job right now is a better job than the Florida job is.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it can't be the exact opposite depending on circumstances. But I think that Lane Kiffin's done a really good job of leveraging that job and securing generational wealth and then putting together a really good football program at the same time.
Yeah, Ole Miss wins this past weekend, 52-13 at home to Georgia Southern. And it gets a little bit more interesting, the 11 a.m. game on ABC this week for Kentucky and Ole Miss. And you mentioned Florida. They got the win at Mississippi State. Their bye week this week. Everyone's watching to see if they make a change down there. And you bring up Ole Miss as a better job than Florida. But there seems to be a love and want that Lane Kiffin get in the conversation at Florida. I think because of the way you're saying this, you don't think Lane Kiffin would leave Ole Miss for Florida. Is that a true statement from you?
Yeah. Listen, I think with this Florida scenario, you have to start to ask yourself, what is wrong institutionally or internally there? Because you go all the way back to, you can go back to Will Muschamp if you want to. And, all of those guys that were dismissed all had winning records. I mean, at one point, Dan Mullen had Florida the number 6 team in the country, and that was just a few years ago.
Right.
And we forget that. We gloss all that over. And for whatever reason, they can't seem to get it right. If Jim McElwain, if Will Grier doesn't get popped for PEDs at quarterback, his tenure may have turned out completely different because they had a quarterback, they had an offensive identity, and they were really good on defense, and they could have gotten started rolling. But there's something that's just not happening there at Florida. And if you can't identify what it is, or you were to let ego get in the way in the sense of, oh, well, I'll be the guy to fix it, then I think you're risking an awful lot if you're interested in it, if it were to come open.
We're going to talk Georgia and Alabama a little bit here in just a second. The big game at Bryant-Denny, and a big one at Jordan-Hare, man, 2-2, and here comes Oklahoma. Oklahoma's first SEC road trip. It should be a good atmosphere. We'll talk more about that game near the end of the show as well. But as we continue the conversation this morning, brought to you by our friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag, promo code next round, we got to go to Colorado, where they had a Hail Mary to get to overtime, and then they end up winning the game in overtime. Just real quickly, Shedeur Sanders is a great quarterback. He keeps putting up numbers, made great throws at the end. But Travis Hunter, 4 straight games are over 100 yards receiving, 7 catches, 130 yards in this past game. But then he's the decoy. He says he told the coaching staff, let me go solo on one side of the field to free up the other side of the field because they'll triple team me. And they triple teamed him and opened up a little room on the other side for the Hail Mary. Shedeur put that on the only place it could be caught, right between defenders, and the Hail Mary worked. They had a play right before that where Shedeur hit a Hail Mary, hit the guy in the bread basket, and the kid dropped it.
Yep.
But then on defense, going in for the score to keep this thing rolling on, Travis dips that head in there and to save the win. And he puts the head down, the shoulder down, and knocks the ball loose for a game-winning fumble for Colorado. That's a Heisman moment right there, Lugs. And they may fall off the radar because they may not keep winning, but that's a Heisman moment right there.
Well, I think, there are rare instances when it comes to the Heisman Trophy, and because it's very difficult to win it. And we've talked about this before, it's difficult to win it when you're not on a team that's going to probably have at least double-digit wins, where you're maybe not always playing in a time slot or in a window where everybody sees the game. All right. And you're right. The meat of their schedule's coming up. I think they're they're halfway to being bowl eligible. Could they eke out another 3? I don't know. I think he is pound for pound, hands down, the best player in America. And at times I have a hard time coming up with somebody that's a close second.
Yeah.
And I know the type of football Cam Ward's playing, that Quinn Ewers is played when he's healthy, and what's happening up at Ohio State with some of their playmakers and stars. But there is not a person that means more to their football team than number 2 and number 12. If you take number 2 and number 12 off of that team, they're a 1-11 team.
Yeah,
they are. And so I can't come up with a guy that I'd say, okay, value for value, who's better than number 12? Who means more in every phase of the game, than number 12, and he never comes off the field?
I tell you, my viewing on Saturdays is usually I'm just watching who's in the race for championships, right?
Right.
Unless it's Colorado, and they're on a TV every week. And this week, fun game, 2:30 on Fox, Colorado in Orlando at the Bounce House against UCF, Gus Malzahn, who's got a good team. That'll be must-see television. That'll be really, really good right there. So look forward to that. Georgia and Alabama conversation, the early preview of that game, coming up on the other side of our only break here in the show. So keep going with us. If you're new to the show, we do this every Monday morning. And it's on our audio platform, too, so you can listen to it on your ride into work with CarPlay. Same with Brandon Marcello and Brown at 8 o'clock. Audio version is there as well for you. And we got a chat room that goes, and you can jump in and fire away there. Greg, who's a Seminole fan. Good morning. Glad my Noles finally got a win, even though the offense still isn't very effective. Might still start 1-5. He's not really encouraged after Florida State's tough eke-out win over Cal.
So I'm going to say this. I have Florida State at SMU in the ACC opener for SMU this Saturday. And I was in Boston for the Red Bandana game this last week, and then I was in the airport for about 4.5 hours yesterday. And I just started turning on the coach's tape of Florida State on defense. And my entire intent was to watch that defensive tape of Florida State and pay attention to nothing other than effort. Effort. Because effort requires no talent. None. And they were playing against a Cal team that's a pretty good football team. And what I saw from Florida State on defense was something I had not seen from them all year long. So if you are a Seminole fan, know that those kids went out and played hard, and they made some outstanding plays. Patrick Payton made the tackle that saved the game. The defensive end, he had a monster day for Florida State. Made the tackle against Fernando Mendoza that if he doesn't make the tackle, Mendoza walks in the end zone with under 3 minutes to go, and Cal would have won because, again, in the chat room, he's right. Right now, Florida State still can't find an answer on offense. But there were promising things to grab onto if you're a Florida State fan that I saw at least yesterday on defense from the Seminoles.
Blake in the chat room, no, Auburn did not want Lane Kiffin. Auburn wanted Freeze, and he will get it turned around. He's a winner. He's always won everywhere he's been. So Blake standing by Hugh Freeze down at Auburn. It's really silly that you're 2-2, 4 games into a new season, and you're talking about making a change. That's not the recipe for success. So I doubt any higher-ups are doing that. It's all the fandom that goes with a great program where that's happening, I'm sure. All right, Monday Morning Live, quick break here. Who is Coffee's got the big next round Yeti filled this morning. It's a double dose this morning as we get going. Order that next round coffee right there, the blend that Scott Forrester curated. Test after taste. You should see Forrester. He was in our green room. He would taste it with his pinky up. He's like, no, this is not the one. Ooh, I like a little bit of this. I like a little bit of that. He curated the beans from all over the world with our friends at Who Is Coffee, and he came up with the next round blend. You can get it in our store, nextround.store, nextround.store. Go try out the blend that Scott Forrester's palate said is better coffee than anything Joe DiMaggio ever did. For you kids, go Google Joe DiMaggio. We're back in a moment on Monday Morning Live.
Follow Dunaway on Twitter and Instagram at Jim Dunaway.
Things fall apart. There's even a book about it, but that doesn't mean you have to break the bank to fix them. Ryan Brown here for the next round. Our friends at Mortgage Right have a new renovation option that will make repairs and other home improvements easy. If you've recently purchased a home and find yourself short on cash, or you're looking to buy a fixer-upper, Mortgage Right's renovation loan program can help you spruce up your space. Repairs can be made to your roof, plumbing, flooring, and more with the help of top-notch mortgage professionals. So get your fix by visiting mortgageright.com/TNR. And MLS 2239, Equal Housing Lender.
Stop by the New York Butcher Shop and pick up the finest in certified Angus prime beef steaks and burgers, premium pork chops, ribs, and all-natural chicken cut to order just for you. Their chef-prepared entrees and side dishes are the perfect dinner-to-go choice for your family and are ready to heat at home. With a great selection of fine wines and desserts, the New York Butcher Shop is your one-stop dinner shop. 2 locations to serve you, Cahaba Heights and on Highway 119 in Greystone. The New York Butcher Shop, rare quality, well-done service.
This hour of The Next Round is presented by the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, now featuring 7 days of giveaways with your chance to win a share of up to $125,000. The more you visit the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, the more chances you have to win.
From the creators of The Next Round comes 2 new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. 2 team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today.
Follow Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. The social media team at Next Round Live is dedicated to giving you daily news conferences and practice video from UAB, Alabama, Auburn, and around college football. Follow and compare to the sites you used to visit. You'll also get the latest highlights and news from the Next Round Daily Show. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss a thing. Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. See more at nextroundlive.com.
By now, you guys know how I feel about my fashion. However, did you know that I care about your fashion choices? Cargo shorts are out, flip-flops are only appropriate on the boat, and please throw away that stained t-shirt from college. You may be thinking, EG, that's all I own. What do I do? Here's what you do. Go to nextround.store and fill your cart with a wardrobe that is approved by me. Stock up on logo t-shirts, hoodies for football season, and hats for every day of the week. Trust me on this one and head over to nextround.store to get stocked up for this season.
Just because you've quit going to the gym, it doesn't mean that you have to quit gym altogether. Dunaway, that is. With our Next Round podcasts open 24/7, 365, you can access gym anytime you'd like. While you may have done away with your treadmill routine, our version of Dunaway is standing by ready to get you back to your absolute best. Find all that lovely Jimmy D-led content on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and in the podcast section of nextroundlive.com. This message is sponsored by Jimmy Crypto Inc. and Jimmy Crypto for President.
From the creators of The Next Round comes two new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. Two team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today.
Hang out with The Next Round on the go. Whether you're driving to work, running errands, sitting on the beach, or you just need a break from the real world, we can keep you company. Check out The Next Round, Mystery Fifth Hour, and our other shows on your favorite podcast app. We'll meet you there.
Back with you on Monday Morning Live. Quickly before we flip the script and talk about the biggest game in the country so far in Tuscaloosa this week. Golf yesterday with a buddy of mine who's a Mississippi State guy, and he was down and out. He still goes to the games on Saturday. He was back on Sunday. Blake Shapen is hurt. They're going to go to young quarterback Lugs. I heard you talking about him on my drive to the golf course on the show that never ends with you and Barrett every Sunday.
Yeah.
Jeff Lebby's first year there, he inherited a rough situation there. He's going to try to build it. Maybe a blessing in disguise with this injury to get the young recruited quarterback in there, maybe?
Yep, potentially. Michael Van Buren coming out of high school reminded me a lot of a right-handed Dylan Gabriel. Not a very big guy, but very crafty, live arm, quick release. He was originally committed to Oregon for a long, long time. And then, Jeff Lebby comes in and is able to pull him away. So, it's a little bit like Oklahoma's situation right now. But, obviously they didn't lose Jackson Arnold for the season, but you're trying to find an answer around a young quarterback potentially, and there will be some potholes in the road. You got to navigate those, but that is a rebuild in progress, if you will. But I do like the talent of the young signal caller.
Forrester, who's in early with us on the back row, telling me that Texas is a 38-point favorite this week as they take on Mississippi State. That doesn't seem to be enough points. I'd give Texas and lay those points. Georgia comes to Tuscaloosa, at least when I went to bed last night, as the betting favorite to beat Alabama. Nick Saban's gone, so it's okay now. Nobody's going to come and knock on Vegas's doors and say, what are you doing? Alabama's okay to be an underdog at home, and they are with Georgia coming to town. You got the dogs coming barking, those fans coming to Tuscaloosa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. But Alabama feels pretty good. Can I make a case? Okay, tell me where I'm wrong.
Okay.
Jalen Milroe, another year in a different system. He's going to be. He's got to feel more comfortable than he did when he beat Georgia last year for the SEC championship. Alabama's offensive line has to be as good as when they beat Georgia last year in the SEC championship game. Alabama's receivers with Ryan Williams, I think they've got a better set of playmakers with Bernard and Williams than Alabama had at receiver last year when they beat Georgia for the SEC championship. There's no Brock Bowers putting on his little blue tights and his red cape with an S on his chest coming out there, and you got to double team him everywhere. I don't feel like the dogs are as good in the offensive and defensive trenches as they were last year when Alabama beat them in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium over there. What am I missing here? Alabama's got to feel pretty good about this, right?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that hasn't gotten a lot of attention with this Georgia team, and it's reflective of their depth and how talented they truly are, but this is also a defensive line that has been without Michael Williams since the Clemson game. All right, Warren Brinson missed all of camp with an Achilles injury. Nazir Johnson has been injured. Xavier McLeod injured. They are playing down several primary playmakers in the defensive front, and nobody's been really talking about it. And in a game like this, that's where I think depth, where Alabama could have an advantage. Because the way I look at this is, if you're Georgia, you're lining up and saying, all right, Jalen Milroe, you are going to have to throw the football consistently, accurately throughout the course of the game. And if you do, we're going to shake your hand and say, hey, congratulations, nice win. But we are not going to die by the run. And I would be willing to bet that they are going to sell out, load that box, prepare for quarterback run, prepare for Jam Miller, that whole group of running backs. It's a really good running back room. And, okay, do you give up an explosive to Ryan Williams? Yeah, maybe you do. Okay, but I put all of my chips to the table if I'm Georgia on defense. And if I'm going to lose this game, I'm going to dive through the air and force Jalen Milroe to consistently beat me.
Speaking of through the air, Steve, in our mybookie.ag chat room, Bama's secondary is problematic. Where are you right now?
They're young.
Yeah, where are you right now against Carson Beck, who's a veteran, and Alabama's secondary? That could be the matchup where Alabama could have some issues.
Yeah, they're problematic a bit, but it's not because of talent. It's lack of experience and age and maturity and viable reps. And that's going to get better and better and better. And I think actually having a bye helps, correct some of that stuff too from a technical and fundamental standpoint on the field. But yeah, you might have some hiccups. You may have some mental busts. You may have a bad alignment by a young player. And is Georgia capable of taking advantage of that? Absolutely. I think the thing you got to be cautious of every time you play Georgia is they are such a strong, heavy play action pass team that and it's because they've been able to effectively run the football on people. And when you can do that, and that wasn't necessarily the case against against Kentucky, because now all of a sudden your play pass game turns into more of a drop back game because you're not setting it up with the type of run game that you're accustomed to having. So for me, I think this thing is one of those matchups where the teams are so evenly matched that it's going to come down to mistakes. Not necessarily one team just making more plays and this and that. Who avoids the errors that will plague you and cost you the football game?
Alpha Dog jumps in and says, I'm willing to bet Georgia will not do that. Georgia will play with a light box like they always do. He's not. He seems to be a disgruntled fan there, saying, it makes sense. Why don't we load the box up, force him to do that? He's doubting whether or not Kirby will do that. I want to ask you about, I think it was on our show last week where we talked about Alabama's formations and how they could be, there could be that space on the edge, that run game for Georgia that by the way they line up. I know Roman Harper has talked with us about it before. Mm-hmm. By the schematics of the way Kane Womack has lined up this Alabama defense, there may be a path for Georgia to expose Alabama running the football off the tackles. Do you like the way Womack's lined up this defense, and do you see a problem facing a physical run team like Georgia likes to be?
Well, I think what Roman's probably referencing there is a lot of stand-up edge players as opposed to hand-in-the-ground edge players, and so you're coming from distance a little bit. And they're not very big on the edge. And so if you want to line up and try to put somebody in a phone booth and neutralize their speed and quickness by running right at them and leaning on them, then yeah, I would tend to agree that's probably an area for Georgia to attack. I think Georgia's going to do what they do, to be honest with you, because in their mindset, it's probably not who we're playing, but how we play. I would probably say the same thing about Alabama too. But yeah, I could see the edge of the defense being something that would be attacked, not because Alabama's not talented enough, but because of the alignment and the fact that they're more twitchy and athletic as opposed to stout, 5 technique type guys that are going to be able to just anchor at the point of attack. That would make some sense to me.
Great question from Jerry in the chat room. I'll get into that, and we'll get back to the other games we saw, which included Miami making a case to be the best team in the ACC, Clemson hanging around there, Michigan's big win, and everything else that we saw happening on Saturday. But don't forget, our friends at GutterCap bring you this show, guttercapbirmingham.com. Guttercapbirmingham.com is the website there. Superior gutter protection you get from Gutter Cap Birmingham. There's a video on their website. You can see it, what a Gutter Cap gutter looks like after 18 years of having gutter cap. Here's a hint. I'll spoil the ending for you. It looks very clean in there. It's that time of year. The leaves are starting to fall. Get a free evaluation. All right, a free evaluation or a price check right there from our friends, guttercapbirmingham.com, guttercapbirmingham.com. Jerry asked this question of you, Lugs. At this point in the season, which conference is still the hardest to determine who will be the champion right now? Now, Utah made a case in the Big 12. That doesn't look as complicated as it did for a while. The Big 10 doesn't look complicated. The ACC seems to be dwindling down to a couple of teams. Has the SEC become the toughest conference to predict, in your opinion?
It might be, right? I mean, when we saw what BYU did to Kansas State in that contest this weekend, I think you've got Miami and Clemson are the two teams to really kind of separate themselves in the ACC. Ohio State, as you referenced, in the Big Ten. I know my man Greg McElroy had said maybe last week, a little longer, that he feels like there's a legitimate shot at, 5 teams out of the SEC making the college football playoff. I don't disagree with him. But to win the championship, I think it's really foggy, because what we've got to acknowledge is that when you start getting down into November, it's who's healthy, who's avoided injuries, who's got to buy at the right time. There are so many other factors that will come into play as you start to get tired and worn down. And are you peaking at the right time? Like, for example, I think we all think Ole Miss is a really good football team. Ole Miss has not played anybody, right? We don't think Tennessee is a really good football team, and I believe that they are. They eventually went on the road, and hostile environment in Oklahoma, looked really good this weekend. So there's a lot of good football that has yet to unfold that we haven't seen yet from some, participants. We're going to see Alabama and Georgia, obviously. I still think I look at LSU and I don't know what to make of the Tigers just yet, but who knows what they're going to be in November. It's just a mixture of a lot of, I think, really good football teams. And the team that I think could be in danger is Missouri.
Ooh.
They're the team that could be in danger. And so I don't know if I'd necessarily put them in the conversation right now.
Yeah. First off, before you mention Missouri here, GMAC, love me some GMAC. He said at least 5 teams. Which that phrasing by GMAC there, I mean,
at least.
I mean, he was a quarterback, but his, I think he still has a T-shirt that says highest Wonderlic score ever at the combine, right? He's a smart dude. He knew what he was saying when he said at least 5 teams, which opens the door for 6. They will burn the place down if there's 5 SEC teams. They will stop playing the game. They'll take their balls and go home if there's 6 SEC teams in this playoff.
Well, they're all going to start picking each other off to some degree, right?
Right.
I've said going into the season that 10-2 is the threshold. And how many 10-2s are there going to be in the Big 12? How many 10-2s are there going to be in the ACC? How many are there going to be in the Big 10? And it may not be very many. So this might work itself into this exact scenario just by those other teams and those other leagues not having a consistent, dominant 3 or 4 teams.
Yeah. By the way, I don't have GMAC's IQ, but I literally said take their balls and go home, and I wasn't talking about equipment anyway. They got to man up and play the SEC is the way I feel. Okay, around the country, Miami and Cam Ward, 24 of 34, 404 yards, 3 touchdowns, an interception that wasn't his fault. Miami moves up in the rankings. They beat USF 50-15. That game never felt like Miami was going to lose it, like Alabama was struggling with USF for a while in Tuscaloosa. Miami, impressive this weekend. They're checking all the boxes right now.
Yeah, I actually think USF's a pretty good football team.
I do too.
I really do. I don't think that the American is as good as it's been in the last couple of years. But I think they're a pretty good football team. That game was 22-15 for quite some time. Miami, I think you throw them in the mix with Ole Miss right now, what we saw from Tennessee prior to the Oklahoma game, and you kind of say, all right, let's start playing some Power 4 teams and start beating some people and doing that each and every week. Obviously, they've had Ball State, they've had what did they have? I think Florida A&M in week 2, and so what I've seen, I like. I want to believe it. They've not played down to the level of competition in any way, shape, or form where they've done that in recent years. You could make an argument that Cam Ward is maybe the best portal addition or one of the best portal additions in all of college football. So I do think they're a good football team, and I like them up front on both sides of the ball too.
If you had told me a team won a football game with 32 passing yards, I would ask you, how was the train ride from the University of Chicago to beat Center in the middle of Kentucky for that football game back in the early 1900s? But we saw it on Saturday in the Big House in living color, 4K HD television, that a major college football team with 32 passing yards won a big football game this weekend. How the hell did that happen? How can you win a football game with 32 passing yards?
I don't know. I've never even heard of it. I looked at this and I was completely stunned, and then I saw how it played out, and the answer is you completely overwhelmed the other team up front on both sides of the ball. I mean, SC, as bad as Michigan was throwing it, SC was just as bad running it. And that front for Michigan, I mean, offensively and defensively, was just a dominant force that SC didn't have an answer for. And, you know, a couple of explosive plays on the ground, particularly near the end, was the difference in the game. But that was a big win for Michigan, but I don't think that they can live like that all year long. Sure. Maybe they can, but at quarterback, it's just they're constantly having to play around the most important position in football. And you got to figure, like, in my opinion, you don't beat Ohio State without quarterback play, right? You might be able to beat some other teams in that conference because you just flat better everywhere else, and you kind of start to put together the type of offense that Kentucky did a few years ago with Lynn Bowden when they got injured at quarterback and they just did the Wildcat the whole entire time and went to a bowl game. Maybe that's the recipe, but that's not beating Ohio State.
Texas, they beat ULM 51-3. Arch threw 2 interceptions. But I don't feel like we should talk about him like it's going to be a factor down the road here, because everything you keep hearing, and I want your expertise, it feels like Quinn Ewers is back sooner rather than later. Do you think Quinn plays this week, SEC Network 3:15 against Mississippi State? Do you ride Arch again and try to be 100% for Red River? How do you play the Quinn Ewers injury, and what do you think of Arch Manning right now early on? It was sort of I would probably have given him a C+ in this outing.
Yeah. I actually think it was good that there were some struggles, that there were some mishaps, that there were some poor decisions with the football, just to tamper down the expectations and the hype and all of those sorts of things, and for everything to settle down around that program as it relates to the quarterback position. They won big. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't flawless. If Quinn Ewers is 100%, I think you play him. If he's not, and you feel like, hey, listen, we gotta get to one more week beyond this, then you play Arch, and you're the superior football team, and you work and coach the things that he didn't do well the week before, and you play the next week. But the moment Quinn Ewers becomes 100%, he's your quarterback.
He's your quarterback right then. Texas with Mississippi State this week, 3:15 on the SEC Network, as conference play cranks up around the country. Back on Friday night, Illinois beat Nebraska. Now Illinois and Penn State this week. Interesting game in Happy Valley. I was surprised Illinois beat Nebraska, and even watching that game, I felt like Nebraska was still the better team. Brett Bielema knows how to Big Ten that thing up and get a W. Can he do it at Penn State?
Well, listen, if they can somehow limit explosive plays for Penn State, limit or keep the score down, I think they can. I think Illinois' got a pretty good football team. Luke Altmaier is a really good quarterback. You know, it wasn't that long ago that, you know, the discussion at Ole Miss was who's going to be the quarterback, Luke Altmaier or Jackson Dart. And they ended up settling on Jackson Dart, and he settles into the position, and the rest is history. But Luke Altmaier is a good football player. And I don't trust Penn State. I trust him on defense.
Right.
I don't know if I love Andy Kotelnicki, the offensive coordinator. I think he creates all kinds of chaos with the offensive approach and all of the shifts and the motions and the eye candy to try to create mismatches and big plays. We've seen flashes from Drew Aller of being able to throw the football effectively and at least more consistently downfield. But I think Penn State's got the better overall football team, but Illinois has got confidence right now, and I think confidence plays well.
Because we both played and hung out in the same neighborhood in North Shelby County, anytime Dabo wins at Clemson, I'm obligated contractually and by blood to mention him. Clemson 59-35 beat down NC State, 45 points in the first half. Dabo played the Roys in the second half. Is Clemson fixed? Klubnik's looked good lately.
They appear to be. I was texting back and forth with GMAC because I had the game against App State 2 weeks previous, and they did the same thing, only it was worse. What I think they've done is, number one, they are not getting enough credit for how good they are on defense. They've got at least 3 first-rounders in their defensive front four, at least. I mean, they are loaded on that side of the ball. But what's happened is those young receivers that went off against App State, and it happened in the App State game, particularly in the second and third quarter and fourth quarter, lit a fire under those guys that weren't making many plays before. And now Adam Randall, Troy Stellato, Cole Turner, those guys are making all of these plays because they're realizing if they don't, they're going to be standing on the sideline next to Dabo Swinney. And so the explosive plays and the production has been elevated. And I think the biggest turnaround for Cade Klubnik is he's gone from being a guy that looked like he was hesitant, indecisive, wasn't anticipating throws and getting the ball out of his hand, to a guy who knows exactly where he's going with the ball. And the ball's coming out. He's incredibly difficult to pressure and rush because he's not holding onto the football. I think Clemson is a really scary team against a lot of people in major college football right now.
Okay, fastest 3 minutes in college football on Monday Morning Live with Tom Luginbill of ESPN. This final 3-minute dash brought to you by mybookie.ag. Mybookie.ag, promo code next round. Get a deposit bonus when you use that promo code. Leave out the space. Just make it next round. No space. Next round. All one word right there. Mybookie.ag. As we look at Eli Drinkwitz, in Missouri, some coaching mistakes right before the half. What was he doing there? Yeah, going forward on 4th and short, giving a quick field goal the other way, almost cost himself the football game.
Yeah, it's inexplicable, to be honest with you. And you remember the week before against Boston College, they struggled to win that. Now, Boston College is a pretty good football team, in my opinion. But, yeah, I think the biggest thing with Missouri is they're now the hunted because of last year. They're not sneaking up on anybody now. They snuck up on everybody a year ago. So now everybody's lining up. And I don't know if they've handled being in that role overly well just yet.
I saw Mike Gundy look down at his WWFD wristband that said, what would Freeze do when Alan Bowman went out, field goal, missed field goal, 2 interceptions, 8 punts, and you yank him out of the game? He comes back and scores some touchdown, but Utah looked really good in that big 12 win over Oklahoma State.
Well, Utah can stop the run without having to load the box. And what's happened is with Oklahoma State leading into that Utah game, is everybody just said, Ollie Gordon is not beating us. And if Alan Bowman beats us, we're going to shake your hand and say, congratulations, you won the game. Utah came into that game, didn't have to do that. So they were able to defend the whole field. They're just a better football team, I think, overall. And to me, Utah is one of those teams that nobody wants to play, right? They are just so tough and physical. They want to bloody your nose, which is one of the reasons why I think that as the season goes on, if they stay healthy, they'll emerge as the clear favorite.
I had to sweat it out at mybookie.ag. I had the over at 119.5 in the James Madison, North Carolina game. Luckily, it got to 120, 70-50. I love me some Jeff Collins. I love me some Chip Lindsey. I don't really know Mac Brown. I think Mac quit and then kept the job in the course of that game, and we'll see what his future holds. What is going on at North Carolina?
If you saw any of it, and I don't know if you did.
I had to watch it.
Yeah, the head scratching, self-inflicted wounds. There were times on defense they looked like they hadn't practiced all week long.
Yeah.
And the turnovers, the kicking game snafus, the block punt for a touchdown, the penalties, the quarterback play was mind-boggling. Like every single thing that could go wrong did go wrong, and almost all of it was created on their own.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I had to see. No matter what game I was watching, Matt Berry was having to pop up and give me a highlight from it. I was worried he was going to die of hydration.
By the way, JMU, if you look at the rest of their schedule, don't think they're not right there in the group of 5 discussion.
Yeah,
because their schedule is going to play out pretty well, especially if App State doesn't look like they're going to be what people thought they were going to be.
Hey, by the way, mind-blowing thought here. James Madison in Bloomington, Indiana, Kirk Cignetti's old team against his new team could be a first-round playoff game. Won't happen. Won't happen. Won't happen.
That's bold. That's bold.
MyBookie.ag. It's Monday Morning Live. Every Monday we do this, and the audio platform on your CarPlay. You can listen to it on the way to work. Middle 8 is next. Lugs, man, have a great week. Safe travels to the Metroplex for Florida State and SMU. May your games be perfect and your travel easy. Until next time, Brownie and Marcelo, the Middle 8's next.